Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am here with John Krasinski and Millicent Simmonds of A Quiet Place Part 2. John, this film really opens up the world of the story quite considerably. And I'm wondering how much of that sort of expanded worldview of this story was in your head while you were making the first one.
Not at all. I was feeling terrified when it came out, and extremely grateful and lucky that it had come out, and fortunate. And I think after South by Southwest, where we were so lucky to have such an amazingly supportive reaction, I think I blacked out for nearly a year. So I don't know if I ever thought I would do another movie like it. But it was really, and it's weird to say with her right here, but the whole idea of doing a second movie, I said no, I think several times. That makes me sound pretentious, but it's true. I actually said, I don't have a way in. You should go enjoy the second movie with a different writer director. And then I turned to Emily one day and I said, I can do a sequel if I'm in the lead. And not only because she's such an incredible actress and able to do this, I think at the end of the day, what was big for me is, as a person, she was able to hold so much of the hugely thematic things that we were doing in the first movie and articulate. I don't know how someone her age is able to even comprehend sort of things like your dad basically blaming you for the death of your sibling and things like that. And she was able to not only hold those things, but articulate them in such a unbelievably true artistic expression. So I just thought that's the type of movie star I'd want to see. So if she's willing to do the second movie, I would love to dive in and do the movie with her. That's the plain truth.
Well, Millie, your character really does come into her own so much in this film and grows up quite a lot, and takes center stage. What do you think was the biggest change for Reagan? What was the most complicated thing you had to play there?
I think obviously, after the loss of her father, she has to find, and she finds that he actually did love her, does love her. And it makes the loss even more because he was her role model, someone who she really looked up to, and now she doesn't have that. And she returns home with her family, but everything has changed. And from there on, Reagan has a very emotional journey. It's very difficult for her. It's very difficult for her to move on. And she keeps thinking about what's the right thing her father would want her to do, and what would make it just for her father. How can she help the people who are surviving in their communities? And it was very touching and poignant for me. To be back with everyone again was a very emotional and wonderful, and always to work with John. That's always awesome. What else can you say?
Well, John,
bigger and better things now, Sam. She's on to bigger and better things.
Good, she should be. She's very accomplished. No, bigger and better can also be this, maybe more sequels here, because I do want to say, not every film, when they expand in this way and become a series, is able to do it successfully, or might lose the sight of what makes it successful. And I think A Quiet Place really has this core foundation of the family at the heart of it, which makes it so successful. Is that difficult? Was it difficult for you to do while you're coming up with the ideas for the story? Are there other drafts of the script with, that veer away from that?
No, for me, again, the only idea I had was to have her be the lead of the movie. And then the reason why is also because she continues, like she was saying, continues the themes of the first one. And it really did feel like I remember Emily read the script and she said, it feels like the second novel in a trilogy rather than the second movie, that it's actually continuing right where you left off in the bigger themes. And I love this idea of, I think I said the first movie has this idea of the promise that you make to your kids. And at the end of the movie, you find out that, one day you'll find out that promise was not true. It wasn't real. And I think that the second movie is about, well, what's the recourse that the kids take after knowing that their parents aren't superheroes and that they're their own hero in their own story. And I think that for me, that is adolescence. I think that's coping. And I think certainly with what we've been going through, those were the themes. I certainly didn't know this was coming. I apologize. But I definitely know that those themes of coping and actually what it takes to go through great loss is something that I find is the true sort of superhero nature of humans in our everyday life rather than on screen. And so she's the only one who could have portrayed it like that.
And as Reagan goes through that, there's, I think, a lot more sequences in this film where, you know, you're really on your own on that set for many of the sequences. And what is it like? What's the difference between acting opposite someone like John, another human co-star, versus, you know, being in that train sequence or the lab and you just have nothing there in front of you?
Well, so the difference for me was not acting with another actor as much. I did a lot of scenes on my own, but that was also a new experience. I was working with Killian. So we had to discover our new bond, our relationship in the story. And that was a wonderful relationship. You know, he's amazing. There's so many wonderful things you can say about him and working with him. To be back on set again as well, back in my character as well, was very exciting. It was very good for me because I always felt like I wanted to know what happened to Regan next. I wanted to know the continuation of the story. So it was exciting to work with John as a director again. I felt like we now knew each other a little more, what we expected from each other, how to work together from our first film. And so I think that carried over into A Quiet Place Part 2. And I think, you know, this is his vision and I trust him completely.
That's great praise. John, when you're thinking of this film, so much of it has to require the absence of dialogue. And how does that element make you think about the visual language of the storytelling?
It's a great question. I mean, for me, it was really about, certainly even more in the second one, especially in the opening, the storytelling. I thought the goal was to put the audience in with the cast at the exact same time, especially after all the amazing support that people had of the first movie. I really wanted people, because they were so supportive of the movie, I felt that they got the rules, and so put them in with the cast and with the characters in the situation. And certainly, I was taking huge inspiration from movies like Children of Men, where the camera's visual language has to feel less like you're documenting a situation and more that you're living through a situation. So the camera's moving as one would in sort of a panicked surveillance of a room or something like that. Certainly the opening was sort of designed to almost feel like a 360 experience, that you're going from one person to the next and everything's happening at the same time. But even going through the train with Millie, I tried not to shoot her in any way that wasn't really being with her and making sure that you felt you were right there with her, because I thought actually the wider I shot the movie, the less tension it would have. The more you stick with her and actually are with her at every moment, the more fear you'll have. So I think the visual language of that, I mean, for me, the most exciting experiences in theater and movies or any time is when you have those moments without dialogue, where you see these characters actually taking stock in their situation and feeling things like remorse or sadness or feeling grateful or things like that. And I think truly there hasn't been an actor that I've seen in recent history that has so much going on in their face and is able to pull off such incredibly intricate and really articulate things so artistically as she does so well. So I mean, one of my favorite things is when I cut out all sound in the whole movie. Very rarely can you rely on an actor from a crane shot 65 feet above and just say, you know, the 300 crew members are trying to make a camera move down to an actress, but it all comes down to an actress being able to nail it. And to her credit, she nailed it 5 times. It was really our camera move that I preferred in one of the takes, but she was there every single time delivering a performance that made me cry. So,
well, we should talk about that opening and your performance in that opening, Millie, because in one film you get to both evolve your character and she grows up, but you also start out with a peak in the past. What was it like having to go back in time and play Reagan then?
Well, it was actually exciting to do that because I always wondered, how the aliens had gotten on Earth. And this, during part one, we would have these conversations about what the origin story was, what the backstory was, but to see it now actually happen and be enacted, to see it really did, it made me change, because now I understood the story and how it actually affects the family, how it affects the world. So I'm seeing it at the beginning stages. So it really made me happy to have that closure, and we could play with that part now as Reagan's character.
I also love getting to act with her happy, to actually get to see the world joyful before, again, sort of representative of what we're going through now and coming back into a hopeful situation. But certainly I think the biggest thing of the pandemic was missing what we had before. And I love getting to go before and see that we were really best friends. You know, the two of us were sort of the two people in the family that were very, very similar.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of the pandemic, this film was ended up, you know, by, you know, lots of things were turned on its head this year. And this one just ended up being one of the films to sort of first receive a major release after theaters had been closed for so long. What was it like having, you know, just being a part of that era of movie history?
I mean, for me, it was extremely confusing, as I think it was for everybody. I think weirdly how we felt about the movie paled in comparison clearly to what was going on in the world. And so I think that there was something extremely human about losing everything that you knew before. And the movie just happened to be one of those things. What was really exciting about it was, for me at least, coming back online and having the chance for this movie to be something we could grab onto after sort of being in what seemed like a free fall for a long time, felt really exciting. And really, I don't know, I almost felt like we had a responsibility to be one of the first coming out, since we were one of the last to pull out at the end there. And then to be first to come back and be such a theatrical experience was really exciting to us. And I gotta say, I give huge credit to Paramount to doing that. We were, you know, if you track the calendar, we were initially booked to come out, you know, in late September or something. And I had said, if Memorial Day opens up, I'd like to go for it. And they, you know, they went with it only because I felt like we should be one of the first movies back. And again, that was probably totally my therapy and my therapeutic feeling of, sorry about box office, guys. We just really want people to come back and feel hopeful again and feel that you can conquer these darker things and themes. And so that's how the whole sort of the whole experience went for me. Everybody.
Yeah. You said it all. You said it perfectly.
Well,
we're going on the road with this act.
I think it's perfect. You know, one of the things I enjoyed most about it after we all had to go through this pandemic was just like, for Reagan's character, seeing it is empowering, I think, at this time to see people really just stand in their power and own their own personal power, which she does in this movie. So, and you know, the cool thing about Millie's character is that, you know, in this world, one might perceive her deafness to be a, you know, vulnerability, but actually she holds the key to everything. And what does that mean for you, Millie, to be able to portray someone like that on a big screen?
It's a big honor. I feel, well, not a lot of people, and especially in the film industry, have the kind of story where it's not just about their disability, but it actually is about power, self-confidence, the ability to overcome a vulnerability to become your strength. And I think it helps other people to aspire for the same. And I feel like that's what makes this movie so unique. And I feel like a lot of people have reached out to me, and they've talked about how powerful it was to see this kind of representation in the film. And I think it makes a huge emotional impact. And this story is actually very personal for me. I would never want to be growing up without this power. So thank you, John, for allowing that to happen. It really was a life-changing experience.
Thanks for being the superhero that I found out of nowhere. I mean, not out of nowhere. Thank you, Todd. Wonderstruck's amazing.
Well, before we have to go, since, you know, Reagan is the sort of almost centerpiece at this point, if there were to be a third installment, where would you both, you know, Millie, you can sort of pitch, since we have the creator here, pitch some ideas to him. where do you want to see her going? Where would you hope that she goes next?
I hope she would go to a spa one day because she deserves it. And but after all that running in the dirt and getting cut and shot at, etc., I think that, you know, definitely a manicure with her.
And the spa's called
Yeah.
A Quiet Place.
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's trademarked, by the way.
But I think for real, I would hope to see Reagan Bond reunite with the family again and actually save the world. And I think she's at the place where she's now confident with herself, and I would hope she could be satisfied with herself, and that she did her father justice. But we'll see. That's my hope. We'll see what happens.
I was taking notes on the side. That was good. That's good.
Well, thank you both for sitting down with me. You heard it here first. A Quiet Place 3, The Spa, coming to a theater near you soon. So thank you, John and Millie. If you're out there watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up to date with us throughout the season. And it was great to talk to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.